It's early morning, St. Johns County. I'm the Philosopher Pirate, and this is Florida at Large. I'm going to try, folks, to hopefully maybe make this one a little shorter. I have a lot to say, and I have a whole. Uh, I said in the last video that I don't rehearse these, and I actually had some folks challenge me. Folks, if you want to reach me by email, it's fal@philosopherpirate.com. You can find that. It's not hard to find in the profile of YouTube. But apparently, a lot of people don't know how to look there. They don't want to comment. That's what they tell me in the emails and phone calls I'm getting. Folks don't want to comment. I got to keep my left arm as still as possible. I keep injuring it, and then I'm not able to work on the keyboard. I've got all this important work to do. But they're afraid to comment because of my situation. They fear retaliation. Now, this is true in small towns, folks. Key West, very small place. The Florida Keys. The U.S. Census Bureau, I think the Florida Keys are supposed to have, 150,000 people. That's insane, folks. The reality is, folks, we all know people cheat. People, this little squirrel that jumped on my shirt yesterday or the day before. I'm losing track. I've been up all night again working. It's too hot to work during the days. I do my work right here. I've had people offer to let me use their houses. But honestly, folks, I have the printer, behind me. Everything's right here. I have my paper and everything. And having to move it back and forth. And the weather's been, it's been kind. That's a word for use for the weather. Anyways, people are afraid to say something because of the repercussions. But let's get back to the census. Florida Keys. Folks, honestly, I've been, in the Keys in South Florida for the last 20 plus years. Spent some time, in the mainland, mostly the beachy areas. Let's put it that way. I don't want to be specific. If someone wants to, I don't want to get doxxed yet. Okay, and if you do dox me, please be polite. I'm really fighting a big cause here. It'll just make it worse for me and for the people that know me personally. It's not fair to them. But it's some crows flying outside. The thing is, crows seem to follow me around. I don't know what that means. So do cardinals. I get a lot of cardinals and the little warblers and a lot of hummingbirds lately. And like I said, I have a bat that keeps visiting. Just one all by itself bat, little tiny bat. People lie. They exaggerate. They cheat. Unlike the squirrel, it obviously just wants to say hello, and it's probably hungry or thirsty. And it knows maybe I can help it. Maybe it senses that. Maybe like the dragonflies that land on my nose. They do. I saw a black widow spider. I haven't seen one of those in a while. Taking a walk yesterday. Maybe I'll get some video of that for you. Yeah, clear hourglass, red hourglass. Beautiful spider. I didn't harm it, folks. I hope it, hope it lives a good life. People don't really live in the Keys in the numbers that are on the census. People from Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, whatever. You understand? Those carpetbaggers, as those in the South like to say. Midwesterners mostly, they lie. Okay? Not that Midwestern people are any worse than the Mid-Atlantic or the Northeast Yankees or whatever. They all lie. There's plenty of Southerners that lie too. But they don't really live in Florida. They homestead in Florida because Florida doesn't have property taxes. So the inflation is, or I'm sorry, the inflation of the population. That's what I was thinking. The population is inflated. It is not accurate or true that many people live in the Florida Keys. And but anyways, in any case, I would say there's about 70,000 rather than twice that number. And this is actually important, folks, because the Florida Keys has building restrictions, and those are based on the number of homes, residences, domiciles, and the whole concept is they have to be able to leave in 24 to 48 hours maximum. I'm not sure if it's 24 or 48, but there was supposedly going to be a moratorium. That's a good word, by the way. Moratorium on housing. Well, it keeps getting extended because all these honest contractors. I mean, folks, how many contractors have you ever met that were actually honest? I mean, I've met some honest contractors in my life, but maybe, maybe I can't even say a handful of honest contractors that I've met in my lifetime. And that gets me to, I just read a thing about President Obama's presidential library. What a disaster, folks. You want to read about something to distract you from everything else in the world that's going on? It distracted me a little bit. It made me forget about my own thing, and I started thinking about some of the jobs I've done in my life. And with this injury now and my whole situation, I honestly don't know what my future is. Today, I'm going to go apply for public assistance. First time in my life. If my ride, gets me there, who knows? I don't know, folks. I am so frustrated. I don't know where to turn. I just don't. I don't know. I'm angry, frustrated, and folks, don't worry about me. I'm not going to go do anything stupid. But I am going to do some things rash and reckless because I don't know what I'm doing. And please, judges out there, if you're watching these after the fact or even now, I'm not trying to, on purpose, disrupt the whole legal system and be a nuisance and being, a jackass. I don't know what I'm doing, and I demand, I require, I deserve justice and truth. I deserve answers. It is my right to know who was trying to kill me. It's my right. And if they weren't trying to kill me and just trying to terrify me, then why create such a dangerous situation and then try to cover it up? What is going on here, folks? Anyways, getting back to honest contractors, I worked with a fellow, you know what he used to say to me? He would do a really shoddy job. And then he wasn't involved in the scope of work I was doing. But, basically a carpenter. And I was doing some other work, more cabling and electrical, electronic, low voltage stuff, a little bit of everything, I subcontract for electricians there. Folks, if you've ever met me, I can do any plumbing, any electrical, any handyman work, any of it. I know how to do everything. I can even work on air conditioning systems, HVAC. I can build duct work from scratch. Give me a piece of metal. I can do roofing work, soffits, fascias. Folks, I know how to do it all. The problem is my body is not working right now. I've been injured. Okay, and people say, well, why are you struggling? Well, that's what I've been doing. I've been doing handyman work because I can't get an IT job, and because of my reputation. Obviously all these illegal migrant worker or whatever you want to call them, they're not here in the United States legally, folks. And folks, there's a lot more than 15, 20 million. And I know even in my own videos, I've said there's 20 million. Folks, there may be upwards of 100 million illegals in this country. That's no exaggeration. And I'll get into that in another video. And I have a reason to give you those high numbers. Well, I've been criticized about my buttons and everything. Folks, I'm falling apart. Anyways, this fellow, I would look at his stuff, and I'm probably making all kind of microphone banging noises. I looked at his work, and I'm looking over at it, and he notices, I don't say anything because he's not in the same scope of work I'm doing. And he says, well, if I can't see it from my house, it's fine. That was his attitude. Because it was once the sheetrock, the drywall, and by the way, folks, they call it gyp board overseas, gypsum board, or gyprock. Another thing they call it. So you got sheetrock, drywall. It's all the same stuff. Plasterboard. And basically, he knew it was going to be covered. His shoddy work, whatever. But folks, you know what? He had a point. Couldn't see it from his house. And then I worked with an engineer years ago also, and he had another thing. This is about honest engineers. They're a little more honest than contractors. Who I've met out of the dozens in my lifetime. His favorite saying was, "Well, as long as this outlives me." In other words, if the bridge falls after he dies, he doesn't care. He's dead. As long as it outlives me. And that was his philosophy. He didn't care about the legacy of his own name, his family, or whatever, just as long as it outlived him. And this is the same thing with a lot of things. As long as I don't get caught before I get old, because nobody throws an 80-year-old in jail unless they're like that big financial guy, Madoff, I think it was. Unless it's somebody like that, they don't throw 70, 80-year-olds in jail. So if you can make it to that high 60s, and even though you're a criminal and you've done a lot of bad things during your life, I mean, other than like murder or something, or those big financial, ripping off billions of dollars from people in retirement, they don't put people in jail like that, folks. They're old. Maybe the most they get is house arrest. There's a guy in the Florida Keys. I don't want to mention his case. Some people think he's dangerous. You know what, folks? I don't care at this point. I don't care who people think is dangerous, whatever. Yeah, it was a murder for hire in the Florida Keys. Hell, there was somebody that tried to blow up their spouse in their car. Car bomb. I probably shouldn't say that, but that's what it was, folks. And it was done right after 9/11. I was there in the Keys. Done right after 9/11, so that she wanted to kill her husband, or I can't remember which it was. I think it was. I think she wanted to kill her husband, or the husband wanted to kill the wife, and make it look like it was terrorists. It was terrorists. So they used that actual car bomb. Back to the old Irish car bombing days, because in the Florida Keys, folks, when people say car bomb, it's a drink. It's an Irish car bomb, similar to a Boilermaker, Anyways, for those of you, into old drinks. But anyways, I'm going to talk about the contractors there. Folks, I actually do kind of think about what I'm going to say, but I don't rehearse it. I don't write a script. I'm not reading a teleprompter. I just talk. Another subject I wanted to cover, I'm on X now. I know I mentioned that in my very first video. Well, I had an account already established then. I didn't do much with it because, honestly, X is a pain in the neck to use. It won't work on most browsers, and I prefer using a computer to using a phone or a tablet to do my work. And without using an app on Android, X, or on iPhone, X is a pain in the neck. It doesn't work. And then if you don't upgrade your browser every time they recommend an upgrade, X stops working. Well, that's why I didn't use it. Well, I'm on X. It's Florida at Large. Same thing. I'm gonna place a link in the comments and in the description. I hope that that's not some violation of terms of service. I'm only gonna do it once. Also on Rumble. Now I know Rumble is kind of right leaning. I don't know. I'm on there as well because I think YouTube is suppressing my videos, and I've been saying that since the beginning. Folks, my hurricane videos, even those, I think I deserved a lot more than a couple thousand views on my hurricane videos. I'm out there standing in, I was one of the only ones doing that for that particular hurricanes. I I was out there, folks. I was on the beach. I was out there. I mean, I was, out there. And folks, I never actually endangered myself. There was always a building or something that was deflecting the debris, so I wasn't standing in the path. Because, folks, when you're standing there at night in a wind 80, 90 miles an hour that's, hitting you in the face, it could be carrying pieces of stuff flying at 80, 90 miles an hour, like a flat piece of metal or wood. It could hit me square in the face. Okay, so you can't see it because it's dark, heavy rainfall. There's a sea spray mist. It would be stupid. So, folks, I was always standing behind something that would deflect the debris, but you could get the effect. Okay, because I'm not stupid. And besides that, trying to stand in 90 plus mile an hour winds is very difficult. But I've said that in my videos too. People tell you they were standing in 120. They're lying, folks. They're just lying. They're not standing in 120 mile an hour wind. A person might be able to crawl on the ground in 120 mile an hour wind, maybe even in a squatting position, possibly, but not walking. We'd flop like a leaf. And I know from experience. Not that I flopped like a leaf, but the force is incredible. Anyways, it's just physics, and it's math. I could do the math anyways. But just wanted to let you know, folks, I'm going to go apply for public assistance today. I may do some court filings as well. And I'm pretty much at the end of my rope. I'm going to try not to file bankruptcy, but I may still do that. I have the voluntary petition for bankruptcy all ready to go. Those that have been communicating, I appreciate it. Even the ones that are criticizing me, I'll validate anything. Call me a liar, call me a phony, call me a fake. It really happened, and there's an ongoing cover up. And folks, I don't know. I need some help, and I may make this into a career, helping victims of crime, especially crime committed by law enforcement, elected officials, bureaucrats. If it's connected to someone in a position of power who should know better, who should be setting an example, that's what I want to focus on. As an investigative journalist, maybe an advocate, if I can legally do that, I don't know. I don't know how Florida law looks at all that, but because, I want to help people like myself. If I can get something positive out of this, some type of restitution, I want to do that for other people. Even if it's like a hobby or an advocacy, even if I don't, not able to, and I hate to use the word monetize, it's a big